If I asked you right now to choose between listening to a Stray Kids song on Spotify or experiencing that exact same song live in a stadium, which one would you pick? It's actually a harder question than it sounds. Most fans immediately say live performances because Stray Kids are known for their explosive stage presence. But then you listen to songs like God's Menu, S-Class, Maniac, or Thunderous with good headphones, and suddenly you start noticing details that are almost impossible to hear during a concert. Tiny sound effects, layered vocals, hidden harmonies, and production choices that reveal just how much work Sriracha puts into every track. So today, we're tackling a debate that I think every stay has thought about at least once. Are Stray Kids' live performances actually better than their studio versions? Or are we overlooking just how incredible the studio recordings really are? Let's start with the side that most people probably expect me to take, the live performances. Because honestly, when Stray Kids step onto a stage, something changes. It's almost like the song itself evolves into a completely different creature. The studio version becomes the blueprint, but the live version becomes the final form. And that's not something every artist can do. Some groups perform their songs exactly as recorded. Stray Kids don't. They treat live performances as opportunities to reinvent the music. One of the biggest examples is their vocal delivery. Have you noticed how much more aggressive they sound live? Bang Chan will throw in unexpected ad-libs. Changbin's voice somehow sounds even more intense. Han adds little vocal flourishes that weren't in the original recording. Even Changbin and Han often push their vocals harder during emotional moments. The result is that the songs feel less controlled and more alive. You never know exactly what you're going to get, and that unpredictability makes every performance exciting. And then we have the energy factor. This is where I honestly think Stray Kids separate themselves from a lot of performers. Watch a live stage of Miro or God's Menu and compare it to simply listening to the song. The difference is massive. Changbin and Han aren't just rapping anymore. They're practically commanding the crowd. They're yelling hype lines, encouraging audience participation, and feeding off the energy in the room. Sometimes they even abandon the precise rhythm of the studio track just to create more excitement. From a technical perspective, it might not be as perfect, but from an entertainment perspective, it can be absolutely unforgettable. What fascinates me most is how Stray Kids seem completely comfortable sacrificing perfection for impact. In K-pop, perfection is often treated like the ultimate goal. Perfect vocals, perfect dancing, perfect synchronization. But Stray Kids sometimes choose excitement over perfection. And honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why their concerts have such a strong reputation. They aren't trying to recreate a CD on stage. They're trying to create a memory. Let's talk about the instrumentals too. Because if you've ever watched their award show performances or concert stages, you know they rarely settle for simply replaying the original track. Songs get remixed. Rock guitars suddenly appear. EDM sections become heavier. Dance breaks get added. Traditional Korean instruments might show up in a completely unexpected place. It keeps familiar songs feeling fresh. Even if you've listened to a track 100 times, a live performance can still surprise you. And then there's what I call the Bang Chan effect. You know exactly what I'm talking about if you've watched enough concert footage. Bang Chan has this ability to turn a structured performance into a giant celebration. He constantly interacts with the crowd, encourages singing, and creates an atmosphere where the audience feels like part of the performance itself. Suddenly, the song isn't just coming from the stage anymore. It's happening everywhere in the venue. That's something a studio recording can never fully replicate. But now let's switch sides. Because as much as I love their live performances, I think many fans underestimate how incredible the studio versions actually are. In fact, I would argue that some Stray Kids songs are production masterpieces that deserve far more appreciation than they get. Think about God's Menu for a second. Most people focus on the iconic do-do-do-do-do part, but put on a good pair of headphones and listen carefully. You'll hear layers upon layers of sounds happening underneath the main vocals. There are tiny effects, transitions, whispers, harmonies, and textures that many listeners don't even notice the first time. That's because Sriracha doesn't just produce songs, they build sonic worlds. The studio versions also showcase something that's nearly impossible to replicate live: flawless layering. Multiple vocal tracks can be stacked together with perfect precision. Harmonies can enter for a split second and disappear. Background vocals can subtly support the main melody. During a concert, even the best performers can't perfectly recreate every one of those layers while simultaneously dancing at full intensity. It's simply not physically possible. Felix's voice is another great example. In the studio, his deep tone is perfectly balanced against the higher vocals of Sungmin, Bangchan, and IN. The producers can adjust every frequency until everything sounds exactly right. In a live environment, especially in huge stadiums, that balance can change depending on acoustics, sound systems, and crowd noise. Sometimes certain details naturally get lost. The same thing applies to rhythm. Stray Kids songs are often built around incredibly precise electronic and hip-hop production. Every beat lands exactly where it's supposed to. Every transition is calculated. Every drop hits at the perfect moment. Live performances introduce human unpredictability, which can be exciting, but the studio versions preserve the original vision with absolute precision. This is where the debate gets really interesting for me, because I don't think the answer is as simple as saying one is better than the other. I think they're designed for completely different purposes. The studio version is where you appreciate the artistry, the songwriting, and the production genius of 3RACHA. The live version is where you experience the emotion, energy, and chaos that make Stray Kids such incredible performers. Personally, if I want to analyze a song, discover hidden details, or fully appreciate the production, I'm choosing the studio version every time. But if I want to feel something, if I want adrenaline, if I want to understand why people leave Stray Kids concerts talking about them for weeks afterward, then I'm choosing the live performance. And maybe that's actually the biggest compliment we can give Stray Kids. Most artists have one version that's clearly superior. Either the studio recording sounds better or the live performance sounds better. But Stray Kids somehow make both experiences worth revisiting. The studio version gives you details that the live version can't. The live version gives you energy that the studio version can't. So now I want to hear your opinion, because I know this debate is going to divide the fandom. If you could only keep one version forever, would you choose Stray Kids' studio recordings or their live performances? Are you someone who loves hearing every hidden production detail from 3RACHA? Or do you prefer the raw energy, crowd interactions, and unpredictable moments that happen on stage? Let me know in the comments, because I'm genuinely curious where most stays stand on this debate. And who knows? Maybe the answers will reveal whether Stray Kids are ultimately better known as producers or performers.